With only one game remaining in Week 4, the Arizona Cardinals have looked like one of the most impressive teams in the entire NFL. In this video, we're going to discuss if the Arizona Cardinals can keep up this level of play throughout the entire season, or if they'll end up flopping. So let's get into the video. With only the Monday night game being left at the time of filming this video, the Arizona Cardinals are the only team sitting at 4-0. The Raiders are playing tonight, like I said, so they have a chance to go 4-0 as well. But besides those two teams, there's no team that doesn't have a loss yet. The Arizona Cardinals, however, have had pretty difficult games compared to other teams in the NFL, yet they're still able to win all of them. If we go through all their weeks, in week 1, they had one of the most impressive performances of an opening week team I think the NFL has ever seen, when they went against a playoff team in the Tennessee Titans and absolutely demolished them 38-13. Chandler Jones in that game had 5 sacks just by himself, and the Arizona Cardinals team in general just dominated that entire game. Even though the Arizona Cardinals were expected to be a good team because of how much talent this team added in the offseason and how much talent it already had and is going to continue to grow throughout the season, I don't think anyone expected them to put up the numbers they have so far this season. Undefeated is one thing. However, the fact that they've played the Titans and the Rams, and those are two teams that are expected to be great teams, and handled them pretty well, especially with the Rams being a division opponent, I think makes the Cardinals' record even more impressive. Yesterday, we saw them play the Los Angeles Rams, a division opponent, and I said this in one of my other videos. I always feel like when you play against a division opponent, it makes it really, really difficult because you play the team so often, the coaches know each other so well, the schemes are always known by the other team more than anyone else in the league. However, the Rams did have a slightly different team, so I felt like, if anything, the Rams had a slightly more favorable matchup just for that reason alone, just because, they have Matt Stafford. That changes from going from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford is a huge leap in my opinion, and Jared Goff is just much younger. Matthew Stafford is more experienced. He's been a great quarterback throughout his entire career, I would say. And the Rams have looked really, really strong this year. I mean, they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I don't think many people expected. I feel like when they beat the Buccaneers, people were like, okay, the Los Angeles Rams are a legit team. I really do feel like people were, kind of putting the Cardinals down. Even though the Cardinals and Rams were both undefeated going into this game, one of them would walk out undefeated. I don't think really many people expected the Cardinals to dominate the game the way they did. I mean, Kyler Murray, he had 268 yards and 2 touchdowns, which was actually one of his lowest yards per game in any game this season. And that's because the Cardinals took care of business pretty early. At halftime, they were up 24-13. And then in the third quarter, the Cardinals scored 10 points that were unanswered by the Los Angeles Rams. So that means that it was 34-13 at the end of the third quarter. Kyler Murray didn't really have to throw the ball in the fourth quarter, so his stats, weren't really there. And this running attack that the Cardinals have added this season has been one of the biggest things for them. Obviously, losing Kenyan Drake, who has been an up-and-down player throughout his entire career. But people really expected him to, flourish in the Cardinals when he got traded there. It never really worked out. He ends up moving to the Raiders. And then they signed James Conner from the Pittsburgh Steelers in the offseason. And people, didn't really know what to expect. But the Cardinals running game through the first 4 games has been really strong. I mean, yesterday alone, Chase Edmonds had 12 carries for 120 yards. He was averaging 10 yards per carry. James Conner, on top of that, had 18 carries for 50 yards. And then obviously you have Kyler Murray, who, it looks like he's a video game when he's out there running the ball himself. No one could tackle him. He also had 6 carries for 39 yards. It was just an absolute great game from all aspects for the Arizona Cardinals. Their defense played really well. Matt Stafford had 1 pick. He had 280 yards on 41 attempts. So, the offense for the Rams wasn't terrible, but, they had to throw the ball so much. And when you have Matthew Stafford throwing 41 times, the fact that you were able to limit his passing yards to only 280, and you were able to force a turnover, that's huge. That's one of the biggest things for them. And that Cardinals defense, that pass rush the Cardinals defense has is crazy. We saw it week 1 when they played the Tennessee Titans. Chandler Jones alone had 5 sacks. They added J.J. Watt in the offseason. This Arizona Cardinals team, in my opinion, has a real chance to make a run. Now, the AFC West and the NFC West are two of the strongest divisions in football right now. I mean, both divisions, the bottom team is currently sitting at 2-2. And the Cardinals, it wasn't a night game. It was a 4:30 game Eastern time. The Cardinals, that was their first in-division game so far this season, so they're still going to have to play the Rams one more time. They have to play the 49ers twice, and they have to play the Seahawks twice. Those are all tough games. Getting the one over the Rams was huge for that team. Next week, we see them play the 49ers. So that's going to be another division game that they get to play. The 49ers didn't look great this week. Trey Lance actually played pretty well in the second half of the game when Jimmy Garoppolo went down with an injury. It seems like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out for next week too, so we're going to see Trey Lance. We're going to see how the Cardinals scheme for him. We'll see how they're going to plan to stop him. But that's a winnable game. The 49ers have a lot of injuries. They seem to have a lot of injuries for the past 2 years. I still think it will be a good game, but the Cardinals have a chance to win that game too, which would be huge to start off in that Division 2. And it was huge to get 2 division games right off the bat and to stay undefeated, obviously. But overall, the Cardinals do have a pretty tough schedule. So 49ers, I think, are going to be a hard game. And then on October 17th, it's Cardinals at Browns. Again, the Browns have played pretty well. They had a tough game against I think it was the Vikings they played yesterday. And the Vikings, it is the Vikings. The Vikings have had some tough games. The record does not show how good the Vikings are. I think that's a better team than most people think. I'm hoping to see them get some wins so that they can really prove themselves, because all the games they've been in have been really, really close. They fought really hard. I don't think the Vikings are like most other or the record that the Vikings have. I don't think they're like most other teams. I mean, they lost to the Cardinals, for example, the team we're talking about in this video, by 1 point on a field goal at the very end of the game that was missed by the Minnesota Vikings. So it's the Vikings are a better team than most people think. So I think the Browns are still good. It's going to be a tough matchup when the Cardinals go there in Cleveland. And then I think it's a winnable game again. I think the Cardinals have all winnable games because I think they're a really good team. Then they go and they're back at home. They play the Houston Texans. That should be a win. I don't care if it's Tyrod Taylor or Davis Mills starting. That should be a win for the Cardinals. Hopefully it's not a trap game. Then they have Aaron Rodgers come into town. That will be a tough game, obviously. If you look at that game, the Cardinals defense has been able to get a lot of pressure, and the Packers have not been able to deal with a lot of pressure. We saw that against the New Orleans Saints. However, the Packers have bounced back since then. That was week 1. But that should be a tough game. But the Cardinals, if their pass rush is really strong against that, I think Kyler Murray and that offense could really dominate that Packers defense, which is really struggling lately. As long as that pass rush is able to slow down Aaron Rodgers, that's a winnable game. And then they go to the Cardinals at 49ers. Another division game. Don't know what Jimmy G's status will be at that time. But against a division game, it's going to be hard. And then they have Sam Darnold come to town and the Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey at that time probably will be healthy. That's November 14th, so it's over a month away. He should be back by then. And that Panthers team has looked really good despite getting their first loss this season. I would say they're playing much better than I think people thought. Despite getting beaten pretty convincingly by the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys are a better team than most people expect as well. I'll probably have a video out on them later this week. We'll get into that later. But that's a winnable game for the Cardinals, especially being at home. That Panthers defense is really strong. It's going to be able to stop the run, so we're going to see how Kyler Murray reacts to that. But I think that Cardinals defense could maybe throw Sam Darnold off a little bit. Then they finally play this. They don't play the Seahawks until November 21st. That's a pretty late into the season to have their first matchup against the Seahawks. We all know what to expect. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. It's going to be a duel probably. We've seen the matchup a few times already. It will be a good game. I'm sure it's in Seattle, so it's going to be really tough with the 12s. And then Cardinals at Bears, December 5th. That should be a winnable game. The Bears are in a growing phase. I hope Justin Fields is starting at that time. I think Andy Dalton is good. I like, personally, the rookie quarterback getting some time to see what's happening. So I hope Andy Dalton comes back, but at that time it should definitely be Justin Fields because that's Justin Fields' team next year, 100%. But that should be a winnable game for the Cardinals. They should be able to dominate the rookie, and their offense should be able to at least have a decent game. I know that Bears defense is tough, but this Cardinals offense is different than most other offenses. I think it's hard to stop even with a good defense. And then December 13th they play the Rams again. That should be a good game, maybe a little bit closer than this past week. We'll see what happens. Cardinals at Lions. should be a win. I think the Lions are a much tougher team than people expect, but the Cardinals are so much more talented. That should be an easy win for them. Colts at Cardinals, I think that should be a win for the Cardinals again. You know, you look at how the Colts have played this year. Carson Wentz obviously banged up like he usually is. I think he is a much better quarterback than people give him credit for. I mean, he was on an MVP season when Frank Reich was the coordinator there at the Eagles. So I think that's going to be a tougher game than most people expect. It's on Christmas Day, so there's a lot of eyes on that game. I think the Cardinals are able to win it. It's at home. That Colts defense has struggled just as much as the offense has, so hopefully Kyler Murray can get that offense going. Hopefully the running game can get strong. Cardinals Cowboys, again, like I said, the Cowboys I think are a much better team than most people are giving them credit for. That's going to be a tough game for the Cardinals. I think the Cowboys defense is going to have ups and downs throughout the season, but that's the second to last game of the season. I expect the Cowboys defense to be strong at that point. So that should be a really good game. Winnable game, obviously. Like I said, all these games are winnable. And they close out the season in Arizona against the Seahawks in division game. Should be another good game. But just looking back on these past few games, the Cardinals have at least 1, 2, 3, 4 games that they definitely should win, which would already give them 8 wins. I mean, you pretty much just need to win 2 of those hard games, and you're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot. Even so, they're on a really good track. I think the Cardinals are legitimate contenders. The first one of these video series, I've kind of gone through some teams that have had really good starts and seen where they're going to go for the season. If you haven't checked those out, check them out on my channel. The Cardinals are a legitimate team. They have such a good defense. The pass rush is insane. Their secondary is a little weak, but their pass rush kind of makes up for that, and their secondary plays pretty well. It's not like they're a bottom tier secondary in the league. They're definitely middle of the pack, maybe even a little slightly above average. It's just not as strong as that pass rush is. And then that offense, Kyler Murray is playing like an absolute video game this season. I mean, against the Rams yesterday was his first time throwing under 300 yards. Oh, no, it wasn't. I'm sorry. He threw for 290 against the Titans. So basically 300 yards, and then he threw for 268 yards against the Rams. So he's thrown under 300 yards twice already. He's 9 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You kind of want to see him limit the turnovers, but he's throwing over 2 touchdowns per interception. You really can't complain about that. His passer rating this week was a huge jump up against the Jaguars last week. Despite throwing for 316 yards against the Jaguars last week, that was a much tougher game. The Cardinals didn't look that great, to be honest. Kyler Murray threw 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. His quarterback rating was a 93.1. So not the best game, but we saw a huge bounce back from this week. The entire Cardinals team was efficient. Kyler Murray had 260 yards, like I said, 2 touchdowns, no picks. His first game this season with no picks, so that's huge. He cut down the turnovers. And he's his second highest passer rating of the season at 120.3. The only time he got more than that was against the Tennessee Titans in that opening week when he threw for 4 touchdowns and 1 pick when he had 121. So those quarterback ratings are right next to each other. Quarterback rating kind of hard to base off players, to be honest. It doesn't always tell the entire story. But in those games it did. He looked really good. As long as Kyler Murray can keep this up, he has a bunch of talent around him. He's got DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green. They got James Conner. They have a talented offense. It's really going to come down if Kyler Murray can stick it out. And I mean, we saw last year, Kyler Murray played pretty well all throughout the entire season. And if he could keep up the play that he's playing right now, I think the Cardinals are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, which some people, I think, were saying they're playoff guarantees or playoff hopefuls. I don't think anyone's really put them in the Super Bowl conversation yet. People kind of expect that to be like the Buccaneers and the Packers, I feel like. Maybe the 49ers were even thrown in there just because of the 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. People expect them to bounce back. But I would say this Cardinals team is more talented than that 49ers team. It's going to come down to Cliff Kingsbury. Can he coach a good team? Through 4 weeks, it looks like he can. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think the Cardinals are legitimate title contenders this season or if this is just a fluke start for them. I personally don't, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much, and have a great day.